Okay, hello, good evening, and welcome to yet another Madaxeman podcast. Now, this is a new, well, not entirely new format, really, bit of a hybrid. I received quite a lot of good feedback on the last set of reports, which were the top-down video reports looking at the games from BIG in Bristol, with a series of photos from top down, in which I just kind of chatted through them and talked about what I was thinking in terms of tactics as the games were going on. This next set of games we're looking at here is from Devizes. It was a 25mm competition. The reports, as you'll see, particularly if you're watching on YouTube already, are the much more normal captions and photos type reports. But I thought what I'd try to do, given the feedback from last time, is to see if I can actually do a parallel talk through looking at the big picture tactics stuff to complement the much more tactical, on the ground, close up, silly captions, silly pictures kind of stuff that the normal reports do. So you kind of get two views of the same set of battles, one looking more strategic, one looking a bit more tactical. So with that in mind, I'll take a quick slurp of Coke, not Wadsworth 6X, and try and start talking you through Devizes, which, for those of you who don't know, Devizes is one of the sort of long-standing shows and competitions in the UK. In the southwest, it's a brewery town, always has been, and oh, I'm saying that because quite a lot of places now have microbreweries that things come in. But Wadsworth 6X or Wadworth 6X is the local brew, and many of the pubs down there, nearly all of them, will sell that. It's in the middle of summer in July, so you basically get to go to a nice West Country town, have local beer, have a curry. There's a few decent curry houses there, and a very friendly competition. And for the last couple of years, they've run a 25mm ADLG event, and which has been growing. I think it's now probably the biggest event that takes place there amongst all the historical periods. And for this one, the theme was kind of a Dark Ages, fall of Rome, 400, 500, up to about 1,000, just kind of creeping into not quite knights, if that makes sense as a period. And for it, I decided to take African Vandal, partly because it's simple. It's a good drinker's army. It relies on charging, impetuous, elite cavalry. Partly because I own the figures. My Dark Age collection can make that sort of army reasonably easily. But I say reasonably because I also ended up supplying another army for another one of the players at Central London. So my collection of Dark Age figures had to be enhanced quite quickly by buying a packet of the gripping beast plastic cavalry that you may well see, or you will see later on in this report. So let's kind of crack on and start rolling forward through this. The first game in the competition was against an Arab Conquest army. I guess it's an army that was attempting or looking to do the new hotness in ADLG, which is take a massive, as in sort of 25 plus unit army, full of pretty average but pretty tough stuff. And the theory with that is it can swarm and overwhelm an enemy before they can chop through the middle, particularly with the big block of heavy foot, which you'll kind of see over here in the Arab army, big solid line of spearmen. You've got quite of a mixed, weird command over here on this side. Medium foot, javelin men, swordsmen, camels, all mixed in. I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. And then the other Arab thing, which is Lancer cavalry but mediocre. So you're trading off the fact that they are not necessarily that good in sustained combat, but impact allows them to do well at the start. So if they win, they start winning. So my army was pretty damn simple. I had a big command. Didn't try to mix up what any of the commands were doing. It's 3 commands that just did one thing each. So there's a command of 6 impetuous heavy foot swordsmen, screened by 6 Moorish light foot, mix of javelins and bows. Then I had a big cavalry command, I think at about 6 or 7 of the charging lancers, and then a smaller cavalry command with 3 or 4 of them and a couple of skirmishing bows. So it almost kind of writes itself. The challenge or not a wildly difficult challenge, is avoiding the simplicity of going cavalry on both wings, infantry down the middle, because that ends up with not really enough cavalry on either wing to win. So instead, stick the infantry on one side or the other, pile all the cavalry on the other side, try and overwhelm one wing. In this case, it would be the enemy left, it would be my right. You're committed to that tactic, and then roll up the enemy, whilst the heavy swordsmen hold back. They're not trying to get into combat too early, because ultimately they're a block in front of the fortified camp that I'd taken. They're a block to try and hold up an enemy, and to take out that 6 units, that 12 breakpoints in the 20 some odd breakpoint army. You are still needing to do 4 hits each on 6 units. You've got to do 24 points of damage to get that chunk off the table and through it. So in which time, hopefully, these guys have been in combat and are rolling up your flank. So let's have a look at what we're doing to start with. As we say, very much stacked to this side. This is the smaller command with the light horse just piling forward. There's only a couple of light horse here, so the risk of being shot minimal. They look like lancers. They're possibly even impact light horse, so very minimal chance of being shot indeed. It's just really rush everything here before this block of infantry can presumably start inching over in front of the cavalry, because these medium impact cavalry who have in theory got a clever plan to do, it's not so clever if they're facing lots and lots more elite impact heavy cavalry just at high speed. So what else did I do? This was the weird thing, I guess. Looking at this gap, the plan of pile everything into one flank, if the gap's not actually big enough to fit the whatever it was 7 plus 3 10 cavalry into, I ended up sort of immediately doing something different to what I planned to do, and split the cavalry in the big command to go either side of that heavy foot block. So some of them were going here, some of them were going here to shore this up, and I was just trying to avoid really fighting these guys and neutralize them by taking them out of the game, because they didn't fit, and these medium foot were a pretty squishy target. So doing exactly what you shouldn't do to start with, splitting the cavalry, and off they go. So you can see very, very quickly this army is is all about getting in your face before you can react. All this lot have had a chance to do is expand out from their normal formation, and now I'm pretty much, if I charge these and I roll long, I'm going to be hitting these people already with my heavy cavalry here. The infantry have barely had a chance to start moving across, so this is charge in my turn 2 to get that force of arms in there. Equally, doing the same here. Their infantry, their medium foot javelinmen, I think, are retreating. I'm pushing forward what is a force that isn't really expected to do much. I think really it was, here's 3 cavalry, they don't fit on the other side, but if I shove them in the face of the enemy here, it will stop this whole formation racing forwards and attacking my heavy foot, which you say there's 2 people at risk here, means none of my heavy foot are at risk for ages, and it buys much more time for the guys on the other flank to do well and start charging in. So here you can see textbook stuff. Heavy foot move up, slide across. They're starting to get in the face of these heavy cavalry, but at the moment, heavy foot, impetuous cavalry. I'm not impetuous. I don't have to charge steady heavy foot. That's one of the rules about, these guys are pretty mad, but they won't charge to their death. And there's still a gap here through which I can have a go at these guys. It's going to be difficult now to get into them all, but I'm tossing this up. It's, not really. It's my only plan. Elite heavy cavalry against mediocre medium cavalry. Even if they ended up with an overlap, so what, really? And that's exactly what I did. So you've got the general who was embedded here. Again, that logic being, it's a small command. It's only three cavalry wide. They need to get into combat and win. If he dies, there's probably all his troops that come with him that fight are actually committed anyway by that time, because it's a 3 wide line that's going to charge something. So embed him, save the points, and get the extra +1 in combat. So what you effectively have here is, I'm better here because of armor and elite versus mediocre. I'm effectively another +1 here because of the general. Here I've got an overlap, but it's kind of cancelled out by mediocre versus elite and armor versus no armor. So the overlap's normally terrible, but works pretty well here in my favour. So this is back onto the other side. These guys are just doing their let's get stuck into something and cause trouble routine. The heavy foot have split. Some of them have drifted to the left. Others, as you saw earlier, have drifted to the right. So I'm already messing up this enemy formation, and these other two charge in. This one charges after these guys who've evaded. I'm not quite sure what he's going to do. He could go in here, he could go in here, but at the moment he's a impetuous heavy cavalry who's in a very awkward place for the enemy. Again, in about turn 2, before they really get a chance to do anything with this clever, complicated formation on this side. So let's have a look at what the small command does. Unsurprisingly, elite armored general against mediocre mediums. That's the one where the big win is. That goes in and does 2 hits. I get a wash at the end, and I actually win here as well, despite the overlap. The dice work in my favour, and there's a win here. So suddenly this clever formation is in trouble. These infantry normally could do something, but if they do, they'll be run over by my cavalry to the front. So what happens in the next turn? You can't really survive against a general elite armour with 2 hits to your name when you're mediocre. So that's the first hole. My guys don't follow up because it's the enemy turn, but but this flank is already in a world of trouble for the Arabs. What's going to happen here? Who knows quite yet, but it's just a mess really. So these guys are now sort of unopposed on about this half of the table because he's not long for this world, and this guy's going to be in trouble as well. Over in the rest of it, yep, not doing so well against the heavy foot, but the aim is almost just to hold them where they are for a while. These two are stuck into some medium foot. The Arabs have done their clever tactic, which I've now worked out what it is by this time in the game. And with this lot becalmed and pinned down, and actually looking at what's actually facing them here, the some at least of the heavy foot do start to come forward because they think, working out that whilst this is going well and this flank is going well, ultimately we are still facing a very big army here. So even rolling it up from this end and wiping out completely everything, these guys win here. They're going to be into the flank of heavy foot, which is good, but it is still going to take time. So by now I've suddenly realized that the heavy foot of my army are going to have to do something to knock some casualties off this part of the enemy army. Otherwise, even though it's going well on the other flank, that may well not be quick enough to actually achieve anything over there. So, and this is the slide across trick. So the camels were originally kind of over here in the line. They've moved forward a base, slid across, which means they're now touching my my cavalry. So as well as effectively providing a kind of, I guess, a crap camely Death Star for surrounded by these 2 medium foot to stop me chasing into them, they can actually also move forwards and join in. And because they're camels, it's only a 1 pip move as long as they move a base forwards. If they're elephants, it would be 2, and you'd not necessarily want elephants there. These are a bit cheaper. So interesting tactic. So what's happening here? We've kind of gone through again. This time they do follow up. This one wins. This one pursues forwards with it. This one is still hanging on. They're just in a world of trouble. But this means this much of the table, you've got this is nearly a foot wide of the table with the rest of my cavalry piling through the gap as well. That's looking good. So over on the other end of the line, what's happening? We're just using some of these sort of spare cavalry who otherwise don't have too much to do, but just to pile into the end of that other line of foot to stop them pressing forwards whilst my cavalry are kind of winning over here. You can see some of the other Arab cavalry have already started to retreat and get out of the problematic position there. We're getting a bit of luck here, to be fair, which was pretty much one of the themes of the game. The rub of the dice did go with me in this one. So we're just engaging them there, but this is now starting to be, let's hold these there, let's make it difficult for them to turn and face up to this threat by attacking their pips, attacking their command and control. So Here's a bigger kind of top-down picture of that left-hand side of the table to see what's happening. This guy, remarkably, is still chewing away. You know, he's got the minus for the camels, he's got an overlap, but he does have his friend who's gone through medium foot there. So we've bogged down, this one's gone, another one, we've bogged down 4 units, one of which we've already killed here with these 2 cavalry, which makes the size and scale of this flank suddenly not so clever. With my infantry pressing forward, the 2 light camels are a bit rubbish. They've been withdrawn, and the Arabs are now starting, even though their pips are spread all along here, they're starting to try and develop this overwhelm, outflank, outnumber thing by pushing their cavalry or camelry forwards here. The infantry will come up later. What am I doing? I'm really just pressing them, ready to hold them. I'm not. If I can engage 1 or 2 here, that's great. But all I've done really is make this whole big formation, sort of neutralized it through an attack, through screening them, through doing it. And as they try and do things, it's breaking them up and making their already over complex command and control even more difficult. So here, this guy's actually taken a hit now. The camels have turned into his flank, which takes 1 move to move out there, another move of me fighting, another turn to turn in the flank. So it's a long process to get that advantage there. This guy has pushed forwards and broken forwards. He's being caught by some other people who are trying the light horse with impact trick, which makes light horse almost a decent light horse impact, pretty decent to hit people in the flank, much better than normal light horse as he's pushed forwards. I partly pushed him forwards in case he does die to stop those guys getting killed behind him. But here's where the action is really taking place. These are the 3 heavy cavalry with who broke through on the right. They've now wheeled out and they are just running. You know, nothing overly clever. It's let's find a target, let's form a nice neat line, let's just go forward. So they're slamming into the flanks of these cavalry. They're coming into the rear of this group that can't really turn because it's got my cavalry facing in the front as well. And the aim is just to get them as far over here as possible, as quickly as possible, and into combat with someone. So what else is happening on the other flank? Remember, there are 6 of these infantry. So the fact that 2 of them are here have made it all the way across the table into into that enemy line. They've removed that flanking cavalry straight away. But I've still got 4 of them somewhere else, sat back, defending the camp, not being killed, being break points in my army that no one else is getting, and they're just adding to the pain, the problems that this enemy commander's got by chewing it up and fixing it back in place there and keeping it away from my camp. So here we're starting to do something slightly interesting. Do you see this is the flanking people coming up? This one has run through the back of some of the infantry. And these cavalry who went in, did some damage, they've done something that is fairly easy to forget to do. They've chosen to break off and fall back because they're much better at impact than in sustained melee. So what that does is still means these guys can't turn around to deal with this because these people are here. They've actually got a bit more flexibility of drifting left and right to put more pressure on. This guy is now going to cause them a problem as well as the light horse. And yeah, here we are on the other side. This guy did so well. He, against all the odds, every time he became almost one of those units that the enemy gets more obsessed with killing that one unit than it does with winning the game. You know, he pulled out great dice roll after great dice roll, stayed on 1 hit forever. And you know, when the enemy are throwing swordsman, medium swordsman, javelinmen almost at him, anything, you can see there's a psychological element to the game as well as a tactical one. And because you know the heavy foot were all over here, these medium foot, you can see they've taken a hit there. And boom, next photo, he goes through those as well. So suddenly he's done even more damage, causing even more problems, and continuing just to do well because, you know, if you're throwing medium foot at cavalry, there are just too many heavy charging cavalry in this army for a medium foot army, or an army that relies on medium foot to bulk itself out to sustain itself against. So here comes yet more obsession. These guys spin into his flank. Some Lightfoot, some bowmen come up and help as well. The general's going in. It's just like, let's kill the bastard. Anything to get him out of the game. Although, you know, he is a massive problem in that area as well. And the heavy foot have swung around and are starting to come in the back of my own medium heavies here. So here we've still got more of this flank commanders now starting to get into that main line of the infantry. You saw it a couple of pictures ago up here, this line of 4. So you'll see here, these guys are now into here, this one's into here, and these guys can go back in. So what this does, it breaks up the line, it gives even more overlaps. These people are just being turned and separated to go through, and what was a big solid line with a lot of breakpoints is going down very quickly from the top. By now, only two of them left, and the light horse are coming in to provide overlaps. These guys are in the rear, more hit markers than you can imagine, really. Back to the other side. Even though he's hitting the flank, super survival guy, he still only takes 1 hit. He is only fighting unarmored medium foot. He is armored anyway, and he is elite, so that still helps. So he's still chugging away. These guys have turned to fight the Arab spearmen after dispatching the medium foot in front of them, and we're keeping the whole battle pretty much on the deployment line of a command whose theory was to be the broad command to advance and envelop. And I've just fed extra troops into it to make sure it stays there. On the other side, it's gone. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. Light heavy cavalry coming into heavy foot from all sides. They've taken them out in very short order. Very short order indeed. So this is now pretty much half the battlefield with no Arab troops on it, where once there were medium cavalry and a big line of foot. Not entirely sure where this is. I suspect it's kind of nearer to my baseline. This is some of the odds and sods of Arab foot who've tried to make a breakthrough and try and come around and rush towards the camp, but the camels are stripped out. I've still got 4 units of heavy infantry who are still kicking around here. All the Siloi are still around, so they're just getting mugged in decent order. Finally, everything gets thrown at this guy. Another light camel in the back, all sorts of things. Finally, he's gone. But with that, there are just too many dead Arabs everywhere to make this viable, and the game's won really from that attack, very swift attack on the right to punching a hole through where the Arabs didn't quite expect so much force, and holding back on the left flank as well, and only sending forward the impetuous heavy foot, just leaving them there as a block and sending them when the enemy was already fixed in place and when its formation was starting to break up, to record a pretty chunky victory for the first game. So hopefully that overview maps onto reading it, and if you're listening to this whilst reading it, or you're watching on YouTube, hopefully that was worthwhile for you. Thank you.